Good morning and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you're all doing good this Monday morning. Today is 10th of September. The first editorial that we have, it's called Cloudy Forecast. Now, this cloudy forecast is based on a very important topic for the whole world. It is about climate change. Recently, a conference was held in Bangkok under this big umbrella framework of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, also referred as UNFCCC. Now, let me tell you one thing, that this meeting, this conference result, if you talk about, it has failed. Now, one of the main aim of this conference was to draft a rule book for the Paris Agreement. Now, let me throw some light on this Paris Agreement. It was decided at that point of time back in 2015, and let me tell you, Paris meeting is also, or agreement, or that meeting is also known as COP21. COP stands for Conference of Parties. So, Conference of Parties 21st meeting, at that point of time, it was decided that we need to make sure that by the end of this century, so we are here in 2018, before we hit 2100, we have to make sure that our global average temperature, right, should not cross 2 degrees Celsius in comparison to pre-industrial era. Remember this thing, it's very important. 2 degree average temperature addition in comparison. What is the base? Base is pre-industrial era. If possible, we should try our level best to keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius. This was decided back in 2015. Now, at that point of time, it was also decided that rich countries, these developed countries, they will contribute $100 billion a year by 2020, and this money will be used by developing countries so that they can reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, because developing countries, they have to, set up their factories, they have to use all these material items because they have to lift many people out of poverty. There are various studies that indicate, that if we are in a sort of developing stage, then we are going to emit more sort of greenhouse gases. But once you reach this developed state, then there is awareness in society, you have good technologies and other things. So naturally, the rate will come down, or it will remain static. It will, of course, fall down, but then it will remain stable. And of course, in a developed country, you have more technology, more research and development going on and things like that. So hopefully things will, come down and down by every passing year or something. So anyways, this was decided back in Paris Agreement 2015, and this money was supposed to be used by developing countries. It was also decided that this money will be used by these developing countries again, for mitigating this climate change events impact and all those risks that are associated with this climate change or this extreme events. Recently, we have seen things in Kerala, Uttar Pradesh, Odisha as well. We were talking about Odisha yesterday as a news item. We know situation of Japan. A couple of days ago, it had a big, this cyclone thing, JB. So all these things are indicating that this climate change events or these extreme events are getting more and more severe. Their frequency as well as intensity is getting more and more severe every passing day, if I can say. And we have to understand this thing, that there is no country that is, you can say, secure from this thing. There are a few countries, they are extremely vulnerable, particularly island nations are there. That India is part of this one of the most vulnerable country as far as this impact of extreme events are concerned. Now, the thing is, dear friends, these are big things, that were decided back in 2015 under this Paris Agreement. Now, the reason why consistently we have failed, or why we have failed in this Bangkok conference again, I'm using the word here again, is because it was last year when a sort of COP meeting took place in Bonn. Bonn is a city in Germany, and at that point of time as well, the main agenda was to frame a rule book. But because these developed countries, they are not, they are not ready to contribute. They are always coming out with some sort of excuses, and they are asking countries like India and China as well that they are big enough, they should also contribute money, and there are other issues, this this attitude of Mr. Trump. As soon as he became president of USA, he stepped out of this, or basically USA is out of this Paris Agreement. A country that was, you can say, torchbearer. Obama played a very important role in making sure that this COP21 becomes a successful thing, or this Paris Agreement becomes a reality. But then came in Mr. Trump, and now, this country is out of. There are other countries as well. Recently, there was a country, I forgot the name as I'm talking to you right now. But I'm sure I think it was Australia, if I'm not wrong. A couple of days ago, it was in news as well. It was Australia for sure. Australia is also planning to stepping out of this Paris Agreement. So this is a very negative sign. And this developed countries, they are not ready to give money. They are not ready to give that money that has, the wealth that they have generated. They have generated out of destroying forest. They have destroyed so many, not only their forest, but they have destroyed so many other forests as well in different parts of the world. Like, say, for example, people from Netherlands or this Holland, they used to rule over Java, and they have literally destroyed Java, right, as far as its biodiversity is concerned, as far as its tropical forests are concerned. This Dutch people, when they used to rule, I'm talking about this colonial people, right? I'm not talking about the current Dutch people. They are very nice, but the colonial era at that point of time, this colonial powers, they have destroyed so many jungles. They have, extracted resources from various different countries, and then they have created or generated this wealth. And now they know this thing that these weather events, right, they are going to hit all of us. Either we swim together or we sink together. It is up to us. It's a matter of common sense as well, that if all other countries are doing its level best to mitigate or to reduce greenhouse gases, and if there is one country that is emitting huge amount of carbon dioxide then, or other greenhouse gases, then it's going to be detrimental for every one of us. So the best thing is that we work together, and there is no excuse at all that is acceptable. If they are saying that they are not ready to give money, they have to give money, right? They cannot be so indifferent to this situation. They have to accept their responsibility for historical emissions of greenhouse gases. This is a small figure, but yet I believe very important figure as far as this. If you want to argue about this climate change, or when I say argue, I mean to say that when you want to craft your answer at that point of time, this sort of figures, not too many, but one or two examples will help you. It depends on the type of question that you are encountering. But before Industrial Revolution, the presence of carbon dioxide in atmosphere was 280 parts per million. At present, it is 410, and it is getting bigger and bigger. So hold this figure in your mind. It's a very important figure. The other thing is, at present, we have two different, you can say, teams. One is of developed nations who are not ready to give money, and the other one is developing countries. In developing world, we have two important leaders. We have China and India. Both these countries have committed themselves to a cleaner growth path. Of course, in Paris Agreement, we have also decided that we are going to get rid of our carbon emission up to 30 to 33% by 2030 or 2035. Between this period of time, we are going to get rid of, we will reduce carbon emission, or this greenhouse gases emission, by 30 to 33%. We have also pledged that we are going to produce 175 gigawatt electricity from renewable sources. And of course, China as well. China too has some big, you can say, figures or big targets, and hopefully we will achieve them as well. The way things are going on, we can safely say that we are going to achieve these targets. Now, if we go through the figures of our country that we have submitted to UNFCCC, greenhouse gas emissions intensity of its GDP has declined by 12% for the period of 2005-10. Between these 5 years, right, we have seen a reduction of 12% as well. So India and other countries, like developing countries, it's not that we are just behind this economic development. We are also learning from the mistakes that were conducted by countries like UK, USA, Germany, and other countries. So we have this advantage of starting late, and this is something that should be appreciated by developed countries. They have to transfer technology as well. Just money is not going to help us. If they give us money and if they are not ready to give us technology, then this again will be detrimental for the whole earth. If they have something that can be used by other countries, and if that technology can help us reduce this greenhouse gas emission, then this is something that should be done, or it should be shared shared with the whole world, if you ask me, because if we don't survive, there won't be any competition. If our country will not exist, then, or if the world will not exist, if life will not exist, then what you are going to do with this money? This is something that they have to think about. The other thing is, scientists are saying that this West Antarctic ice sheet is set to raise sea level. If we cross 2 degrees Celsius benchmark, then it's going to destabilize this Greenland ice sheet as well. And we have also already seen, failure of rabi crops in our country, like wheat, which is a very temperature sensitive crop. We have seen that means in recent past, in the past, right, we have seen this cases of failure of wheat crop because of rising temperature. Let me show you a map of this Antarctic. Here you have this West Antarctic portion, and I'm sure you are aware about this thing, that this West Antarctic portion has started melting. And God forbid, but if this whole portion melts, then it is going to raise this sea level up to 5 meters. 5 meters is not a small height difference. And the second one, right, this portion here, that is East Antarctica portion, again, God forbid, if this one melts, then it is going to raise this sea level up to 50 meters. 50, can you believe 50 meters? That means if you open your atlas, this is a small homework for you guys, open your atlas and observe the big cities of the world. You will find that they are all living on, they are littoral cities. They are sharing its border with either big rivers that are, sharing its mouth with this oceans or seas. And if you are going to see 5 meter or 50 meter, then it's going to be dangerous. There are so many countries you won't find, right? So many countries. There is a big list of countries that will vanish if we hit this 50 meter, and it's going to be you can say a no reverse thing. So it's not that if we stop generating carbon dioxide altogether, it's not that once we cross 2 degrees Celsius, right, then there is no way back. That's it, it's end, right? It will get worse and worse. So that's everything in this article. I'm sure it was a good revision about Paris Agreement and climate change. Of course, as you all know, it's part of your syllabus, and you find every year 1 or 2 questions based on climate change. So I thought I should add some more things to this editorial. With this, dear friends, if you are preparing for UPSC, then we have got optional courses as well for you guys, optional pen drive courses. We have covered geography, psychology, sociology, philosophy, and public administration. To find out more about it, check out StudyIQ.com. With this, download the PDF of today's lecture from my FB page and Twitter handle. Now, the second item that we have is bail over jail. Now, this power of arrest, it's a very extraordinary power that is given to police personnel. But with this power, you might have heard about this saying that with big or great power comes huge amount of responsibility. But unfortunately, in our country, most of the times we find that police personnel, they are either behaving like puppets of political class, or many times they use this powers, this power of arresting and using force and things like that. They use it without employing discretion or deliberation. When this power is given to them, this power to arrest someone, they have to, it is expected from them that they will always, give a second thought. They will minutely, you can say, analyze this whole situation. If they want to jail someone, if they want to arrest someone, then they will think about it twice, whether that what they are doing is right or wrong, what is right, what is wrong, what that person has done, etc. And once they go through this analysis process, which is of course based on logic and their own experience and other things, if they are arresting someone, then you can say that of course they have practiced or employed their discretion and deliberation. But what we find is that most of the time it is a sort of a reflexive response. If they are not happy, if they are angry, then they will drag someone and throw them behind the bars. And we have seen recently, we discussed this thing when this Amit Shah's procession was going on at that point of time. Two students were protesting, both female. There was one male as well, but the video that I have gone through, it was having this two females, so students, of course. So they were protesting, and this police personnel, they started beating them. They were dragged by their hairs. So this is something that is not acceptable at all, and this has been clarified by Supreme Court as well back in 2014. Supreme Court has clearly stated that they have to, police personnel, they have to use, they should never be a sort of reflexive when they are arresting someone. It should never be based on a sort of reflexive or sort of automatic response. They have to think about it. They have to think twice about it. And Supreme Court has also said in this case that when you arrest someone, particularly when someone is innocent, it brings a big humiliation as well on that person, as well as it will leave sort of scars that will stay with that person forever. Now we have this section 41 of the CRPC, and under this section 41 of Criminal Procedure Code, you can arrest, the police can arrest someone without a warrant as well. But at that point of time, they should be sure that they are doing this because to prevent a sort of offense or a crime taking place. If someone is trying to tamper with evidence, or if they are trying to create some sort of negative influence over witnesses, if they are doing, if the police find that this sort of things have been done by someone, then they can they can arrest someone without warrant under section 41 of the CRPC. But of course it should be based on discretion and deliberation. And the reason why we are discussing this thing is recently Yogendra Yadav, he was detained by this police of Tamil Nadu because he was there to study this Chennai Salem 8-lane highway project. At present there are many people who are protesting against this thing. They find that this highway is going to destroy our environment and local environment, of course. So he went there. The person that you can see on your screen, Mr. Yadav, was there to study about this thing, but he was arrested. The other thing is we have also seen that whether it is right or wrong, we don't know yet because it is a sub judice matter. But there are some 5 or 6 social activists. They are behind. They are under house arrest at present, right? But the police or the government is claiming that they have some sort of Naxal connections. Anyways, what we find in most of the cases is that accused is sent to custody after the police. Once someone is apprehended or arrested, then police will oppose that person's bail, and then magistrates as well. They work a bit more in a sort of mechanical fashion rather than observing and taking each and every case as a new case. They follow this old practice of saying, if police are saying that, sir, we need a couple of days, then most of the time it is given as well. So this is something that is not acceptable. With this, dear friends, the third item that we have is too close for comfort. It is about this 2 plus 2, as you can see on your screen. Now the thing is, this 2 plus 2, if we go through this article, then what we find is that this article is saying that it was more a sort of one-sided affair. It was like USA coming into our country, and USA is basically dictating us that what are the do's and what are the don'ts for us. And if you go through this article, you will find that it looks that these two ministers of USA, rather than being or acting like a minister, they acted more like salesmen. They came here and they told us to stop this purchase completely from Iran, this oil thing from Iran, and buy more from USA instead. And let me tell you, a couple of days ago I told you this thing, that the reason why we buy things from Iran or this oil from Iran, first of all, it is cheaper when you compare it with other countries. The second thing is that most of our refineries are set up with this Iranian type of oil. Now, what are the technical differences with this thing? I am not sure about it. But this is a thing. As far as our general studies understanding is concerned, you don't have to be that technical. You don't have to go through the whole process of refinery and what exactly this. The basic thing is that our refineries are more in line with the oil that we get from Iran. The other thing that I would like to add here is that Iran is a country that, as far as this natural resource is concerned, it is having huge amount of oil. But technology or refineries or refinery facilities, they don't have that much. So what happens is that this oil is imported or sent to India, and we refine this oil, and then we send them back this refined oil. That means diesel, petrol, and other sort of items are sent back to Iran. So this is a big deal that has been going on for ages between us and Iran, and USA wants to disturb this thing. And this article is also arguing that India is saying, or being a sort of, you can say, yes man sort of behavior is observed, because since last 1 year, what we have seen is that this import of oil from USA has nearly doubled. The other thing about Katsa, now we have talked about Katsa many a times. Katsa is basically, about that if you purchase items from an enemy of USA, that is Russia or Iran, or here this particular case is associated with Russia, that if we buy this S-400 missiles from Russia, then we will be, or USA will apply sanctions on us. Now, one thing that we have to keep in our mind is that 60% of our weaponry, right, is from Russia even today. And if we are, basically what USA wants to do is, there's multiple options that we have. We have Russia, we have Japan, then we have USA, of course, then we have France. All these countries are there. Germany is there, Israel is there, all these countries are there. These are our, you can say, these are the shopping malls as far as this defense items are concerned. So USA wants us to just stick with them, right? Don't buy anything from Russia, just buy everything from us. That's what they are trying to do here. The other thing is, there is no clarity in this 2+2 meeting about this one-time waiver. It was in news that this Congress or the Parliament of USA said that India is a friendly country. We should not behave with India in this way. We should not apply sanctions on it. India is a net security provider, blah, blah, blah. So it was in news that USA is going to give us a sort of breathing room, or sort of, you can say, a sort of gap or a window, from where we can come and go out. So there is no clarity on this thing as well so far. The other thing is, USA has been insisting that we reduce this trade deficit, this bilateral trade deficit that is in our favor. They want us to buy more items from USA. With this limau, one more thing that I would like to add here is that, of course, it's going to help us, right? We have in total like 4 foundational agreements on our table, out of which we have signed Lima back in 2016, Limau in 2016. Comcasa, we have signed it, right? Becca, still to go, right? We haven't started negotiations yet, but this Comcasa is about optimal utilization of items that we are getting from USA, defense items, of course. But they have something similar with South Korea as well. And South Korea and USA, they are military allies. So if USA's inspector, if they are popping down to these facilities in South Korea, and if they are demanding any time, they can go through this checkup, then that's fine. But with India, they cannot do this thing. So we need more clarity on this item. And one more theme that was visible in this discussion was threat from China. Of course, Indo-Pacific region was a matter of concern that was discussed by both the countries. Now we have 2 articles to go through. This one is about a great transformation. It's about Article 377. And if you go through this article, because I think it was on Saturday, we talked about this thing. Not Saturday, I think it was Friday, or means in past week we have talked about this Article 377 in detail, right? I have taken you through this whole timeline and everything. So I am going to talk about things that are new, or things that we can say they are add on to what we have already discussed. If this is your first day, then I will reckon you guys to open your first day, in the sense if it is your first day for this lecture, then what you have to do is you have to open your The Hindu newspaper of past week. Start with Monday. Go through these pages, and if go through that pages in which you find 3 articles on Article 377. Observe the date and go through the video. This is how you will come across all these basic things that we have already discussed. Of course, you will understand that it's not practically possible for me to repeat the things that we have already discussed. So the best thing that you can do is you can be regular with this discussion. And the second thing is that if you are new to it, then I will request this regular students who have been following this series. There are a few students who are following it from the day one. So if you know the date exactly on which we have discussed this thing, then please make sure that you stick the date in the comment section. In this way, what happens is you are helping someone. You are not only preparing for your exam, but you are also creating leaders who are going to join the same services that you are trying to join. So you'll have good lot coming in. So this is indirectly, if you look at it, it is a sort of serving the nation, isn't it? So think about it, right? That's what I believe, right? When we share things with other, it's not that we are creating competition for us, not at all, because the first step that you are taking is in right direction. Anyways, so this article is talking about that courts, right? The main job of Indian courts, particularly Supreme Court, is to defend the Constitution, and that's what it has been doing for a very long period of time. And it has done a reasonably, you can say, considerable amount of work as well as far as defending our Constitution, as well as all these ideals of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. All these things are concerned. These are the things, without which you will have you can say you will be breathing but not living. I hope you get the difference here. And the other thing is, and it's breathing and living, we are talking about society. A society will be there, but you won't have freedom, you won't have this equality. And then eventually, if someone is, with justice and this inequality, the thing is, today, luckily, you are not in a position where you face this discrimination and inequality. But that does not mean that you will never face it. You will face it directly or indirectly somewhere. So we need to get rid of all these inequalities, and we have to work together here. It's not about just LGBTQ community or people who are belonging to this LGBTQ community. As a citizen, as a part of society, it is our battle as well that we create a society that is equal for each and every one of us. With this difference, second item that we have, again, a couple of days ago, we have talked about it. So do the same thing, right? The first time when it was reported in news, and after that we saw some articles, editorials and articles on this thing. So we have analyzed it in detail. So add-on thing that we are going to discuss here is that it is Jyotiba Phule who is credited to have used this term Dalit. After that, Mahatma Gandhi as well accepted this word, and he used this word in a letter that he wrote back in 1927. Swami Vivekananda says that it was coined by, or the term was first used by Swami Shraddhanand, and the main real meaning is, as per Swami Vivekananda, as explained by or used by Shraddhananda. He says that it is not about depressed, it is not something to do with depressing. It is more about suppressing. That means someone is having a quality, but then as well that person is not given that particular opportunity. So that's what Swami Vivekananda says, and to some extent that is right as well. And Gandhiji and his solution and his viewpoint on this thing is even relevant today itself. If you go through it, see what he's saying, that the real explanation is that as long as the poison of untouchability exists in our society, now at present, I can say that this thing is nearly gone. There are few pockets in our country where even today this thing is practiced, this thing. But this untouchability is practiced, of course. But if we want to get rid of this sort of untouchability and other discriminatory practices, right, or if we want to get rid of this sort of names, then we have to get rid of the poison of this untouchability. And in today's era, we have to get rid of this caste system, which itself, is a sort of symbol of discrimination. If you go through your NCERTs, then as well you will find this sort of lines that caste system itself, is promoting discrimination. It is creating these fractions in our society. Supreme Court has also observed this thing in the past and things like that. So get rid of this discriminatory system, and we will get rid of this controversial practices as well as wrong practices in our society. So that's everything as far as articles are concerned. Now let's go through important news item. Article 161. I will highly recommend you guys to go through it, study it as from a various different angle. It is about this power of governor to grant someone, pardon, or to suspend or remit or commute sentences. Suspend, that means if you are being awarded 9 years or something, then after 7 or 6 years, the governor can say that your jail punishment is over. Remit or commute means if you are going through a sort of rigorous imprisonment, then it can be made into a sort of softer imprisonment and things like that. Now, the reason why it is in news is because Tamil Nadu government has decided that this convicts of Rajiv Gandhi murder case, they should be released because from past 27 years they are behind the bar. And now technicalities, you have 4 points here. That governor, of course, governor has to act on advice that is given by Council of Minister. It is binding on governor. The second thing is that there is no time limit that is prescribed in the constitution, and the governor can take his time to decide on this particular issue. The third thing is he can consult central government as well. And the fourth one is that the government can seek reconsideration of the decision as well. So if in the past governor has said, say for example, no to this thing, then he can say yes as well now. And this has been said by Supreme Court as well in the past. Moving on to other news items. Trial by WhatsApp has made Supreme Court very angry. Of course, this is not acceptable. 50 new CRPF camps to be set up in Bastar has been said by DG of CRPF. And you can see here I have got an infographic for you guys. Please help yourself with it, right? Download this PDF file from my FB page and our official Telegram channel or Twitter handle. And then you can read these news items. Of course, I will highly recommend you guys to go through the main item as well. These are your titles here. So find it in the newspaper, The Hindu, and go through it, read it. This is something that will help you immensely. I'm just giving you a gist of news items here, items that are important. So Venkaiah Naidu ji, who is our Vice President, has said that we Hindus do not merely tolerate, we unite ourselves with every religion, praying in the mosque of Mohammedan, worshipping before the fire of Zoroastrian, and kneeling to the cross of Christian. Back in, I think, 2005, or I can't remember the exact year, but Supreme Court clarified, Supreme Court provided this insight on this word called Hinduism. Now, being a Hindu is something to do with religion, but Hinduism is way of life, as explained by Supreme Court. Supreme Court said that Hinduism is not related with just Hindus. It is a way of life or culture of Indian subcontinent, where you find Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, right? All these countries here. If we go back in the history, then this portion of land or these countries, they have always, it was a one country back in time. So all these countries have always accepted new ideas and new way of worship and all these things. So this is what the Supreme Court understands by Hinduism. And the reason why I'm explaining this thing is because it is something that is very important in today's society, right? We are a very, you can say, when I say we, I'm not talking about being Hindu or Muslim here. I'm talking about as an Indian or Indians, we are very tolerant, or rather than tolerant, we accept ideas, new ideas. So this is something that is part of our culture, and we should always maintain it. Rajapaksa, who was president of Sri Lanka, he's going to be here in India. Things were not going very well under his leadership because he was tilted more towards China. But now when he's coming to India, he's not in power, and if he's coming to India, that means that relationships are improving. Some international news items, please help yourself with it. This one is important. Bamboo. You find it in the last page of the Hindu. A promising crop for progressive farmer. I think last page, or not last page, but in business page. This bamboo is fastest growing plant, and there is no recurring expense incurred in irrigation, fertilizer, weedicide or pesticide, and it can fetch you 1 lakh rupees income on an average. Ocean cleanup team heads to the Pacific to clean up this big garbage, Pacific Ocean, this great Pacific garbage patch that has got huge amount of plastic in it. And these are your financial news items, like we are going to produce more TVs and other items here in our country. This big companies, Hindalco and other countries, they are not happy with this RECAP agreement. And then you have this figure of subcontinents ultra rich. Bangladesh tops the list. And want to know more about this electronic vehicles, then check out my 31st August's a PIB analysis, and look at this sportsman spirit here, right? Sharing and caring, that's what I call her. This world champion Serena Williams, she lost against her Japanese counterpart, but then as well she was very friendly, very cordial with her, and this indicates true sportsman spirit. Vocabulary, and then you have this map based quiz. Today we are running out of time, many articles that we have to discuss, so beg your pardon for that. Small hint for you, it's about Africa, so now I'm sure you are going to open your atlas. Dear friends, 2 questions for you guys. Sorry for being too quick here in this end portion, but we are absolutely running out of time. And dear friends, please, it's a request that please do share this lecture with other students as well, because you are brand ambassadors of this video, right, of this lecture series. So if you are benefiting out of it, then someone else will do as well. So please make sure that you are sharing it. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.